episode, we review It Chapter 2. Forgotten stars worthy to hit the big time once again. And are you a bad boy for life? What you gonna do when they once again delve into the pop culture cosmos? And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source, thanking you so much for listening to all of our great programs. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is our bad boy of Pop Culture Cosmos. Bad boy, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Uh, he is our bad boy of Pop Culture Cosmos. You got to check out everything that we're doing today at popculturecosmos.com, Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and so much more. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. Bad boy, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
What's up? I'm gonna run. That's what all the bad boys do, right?
Or bad boys for life, my friend.
Or they make 3 movies that people may or may not be interested in anymore.
Well, later on in the program, we will be talking about just that very thing because Bad Boys for Life, the trailer actually debuted earlier last week. The trailer debuted last week. So we're going to talk about that coming up later on in the show. Plus also as well, speaking of stars maybe needing a vehicle to revive their once awesome career, we're going to take a look at and we're going to talk about 5 stars that we feel are deserving of that type of vehicle to bring them back to superstardom, or possibly bring them back to superstardom anyways. Plus, we're also going to be talking about our 131 to 140 on our top 200 video games of all time. We're up to number 131 to 140, so you want to check out our thoughts on those on those games that you guys voted on you guys and gals voted on out there. Plus, Jason Todd Feinberg from Hunting Queen, he is going to stop by to talk about It Chapter 2. He's actually seen it. He's going to let us know his thoughts on It Chapter 2. Plus, also as well, he's going to talk about some of the horror movies coming out for the rest of the year. It's not exactly the most scary crop of horror movies that are come out, and I think we're going to go ahead and talk about that as well coming up later in the program. But speaking of horror films, speaking of It Chapter 2, it actually did pretty good, almost but not quite up to expectations this past weekend, earning $91 million at the box office and almost $200 million worldwide. So I got to ask you, my friend, when it comes to It Chapter 2, it does pretty good. Not quite what the first one did, because that one just blew away all the expectations when it comes to horror films. But it did a very good job in earning almost $200 million worldwide. The plate is now set for a future involving this type of property, Pennywise. There's been rumors, and actually I'll discuss this a little bit more with Jason Todd Feinberg later in the show about possibly even prequels being mentioned, because you really can't go into the future with Pennywise, but you certainly can go back into the past.
I see what you did there. You made a pun about the joke about the movie going back and forth in the past, right? Is that what we're talking about?
That's it.
That is it. That is it, indeed. Hey, I honestly, I don't want to. I'm gonna probably go see the movie this week, so I don't want to make a lot of speculations on it. But I'm glad to see it's doing so well. Honestly,
But you've read the book.
I have read the book, and the book is completely different from what the movie has portrayed. But I admired what they did with the last film, and I love how it was not just a horror movie. It was kind of it had drama in it. It had some comedy in it because you had the kid from Stranger Things doing his thing. And it was suspenseful, but it had its shock value, but that was not the whole movie. And that's what they tried to do with the old 80s film, is to go and completely shock audiences, whereas this one had a lot of substance to it. So I'm glad to see that this is something that is sticking with audiences, and I am really stoked to see it. But I don't want to set any standards for it right now because I'd rather watch it and then come back and talk about it. But it is something I am very excited to watch.
But from your experience reading the books, okay, or reading the book, I should say, and your knowledge of Pennywise beforehand, let's put the movie out of context here. I want to just ask, could you see something as far as a prequel that Stephen King could have penned in regards to the Pennywise character? Because it does come up as far as the history of Pennywise maybe appearing. In fact, it's set for as far as when he was an alien landing on Earth, and then, like this old story goes, every 27 years. So it could go back literally to hundreds or maybe even possibly thousands of years theoretically before, from the time that he landed, every 27 years going into a new story each and every time.
I don't know, man. Like, I mean, I'm sure it would find its audience somewhere, but it is one of those movies for me, or books, I guess, properties, where less is more, right? The less you know about this creature, the more terrifying he is. And if we were to go back and watch prequels if they made a prequel about Pennywise and what he is, where he comes from, these two films that they have made recently would not be as scary as they are, because what makes Pennywise so terrifying is the fact that we don't know much about him besides what Stephen King wants to give away in the books or the movies or whatever it is. And I think if you were to go back and really explore who Pennywise is, it would lessen the terror that he brings to the screen.
That's actually a very good point. Seeing it from that perspective, I can understand that. It would lessen the effect of anybody watching It at Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2, because of the fact, like you said, if it went farther back into the realm of the It whole universe, let's put it for that, in that sense, then it would probably create a lot of issues in regards to, well, we're seeing it now when it concerns other horror properties that are trying to go back and try and expand on, like, for instance, the Conjuring universe, because they're just trying to expand and just trying to rake every single dollar. They're trying to go into the history, into the lore even more. I mean, we're seeing where it's kind of losing its effect when it comes to the actual Conjuring movies, because you've gone so far into the other aspects of the whole Conjuring series, whether it includes the Curse of La Llorona, the Nun, or anything in relation to that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like a spin-off would be one thing. What would it be about? I don't know. This is where I think that using the Dark Tower as a jump-off point for a lot of this stuff, because Pennywise is one of the things that escaped from the crevice in the Dark Tower. I think that this is one of those properties. It could be cool. A spin-off could be cool. It's not.
Let me ask you this. Does it make you regret even more the decision that was made, in this case by Sony? Because, the properties are all over the place. Sony owns some, Universal owns some, Warner Brothers owns some, as far as the rights to all these Stephen King properties. Wouldn't it have been nice to have started out with a Dark Tower that had actually, as the center point, and then you go and you branch out from there with a series of Stephen King hits, and then you maybe circle back around to an ending for the Dark Tower, as like a beginning and the end as far as Dark Tower, because all these things are tied into it.
Yeah, here's my thing with that. A lot of people didn't think Stephen King would ever finish the Dark Tower. So I think what the last book came out in 2006 or 2007. So a lot of people didn't even think he was going to be finishing that, and they'd been making movies on the Dark Tower books, not Dark Tower, but Stephen King properties, long before the Dark Tower had ended. So it was just, if they had started at the beginning and kind of had like, hey, here's the gunslinger, here's the drawing of the three, here's Wolves of the Calla, or whatever it is, and then they were trickling movies in between, and then we had one studio that owned all these movies, and they were deciding what movies went out where, with the plan of bringing them all together in a coherent universe, much like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It could have been spectacular. It could have been something that would have been dry. I honestly, in my opinion, I think it would have had more cinematic draw than the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I think because Marvel set that precedent, they were the ones that showed that, hey, a connected universe can work. and a lot of studios followed soon after, or are trying to follow soon after with the monster movies, yada yada. But it's just, I think that it was, the idea probably sprung too late before they were even able to do anything about that or act upon that kind of success. And now all the Stephen King properties are too far spread out for them to even think about doing something like that.
That is true, because I was just talking, as you were saying that, I was thinking about the tone of all the different types of Stephen King properties that are out there. I mean, how could you, I know you're able to relate in the books, let's say the Shawshank Redemption, and then you're able to relate it to something from the Tommyknockers, or you're related to something from a Pet Cemetery, or you're related to something from, let's say, Mr. Mercedes. I mean, you're able to go ahead and through the Dark Tower, able to connect bits and pieces of it. But as far as a tone, it would be really hard to do, because you've got Shawshank, which is a totally different type of movie than what you would be seeing if you saw, let's say, The Stand, for instance, or if you saw, if you saw anything in regards to a Stephen King horror flick, The Shining, if we did, reboot of that, or, you're going to see you're going to see Dr. Sleep here coming up. That's going to be coming out in November. I mean, you're right. It would be nice if you could tie it all in together. And he does in his own way, like you said, with the Dark Tower universe. But as far as if you're trying to do a film universe of it, it would kind of like you said, the tone, it would just be so hard to really try to connect all the dots.
Yeah, and it'd be something that would be really cool to see happen. It's too much too late right now for them. And besides, like the Dark Tower, it would be a nice surprise though. Can you imagine watching the Gunslinger book or movies and then finding out later that they are connected to all these different horror franchises that you've been watching over the years? That would be really cool. But I don't think the planning was laid out in that way. And now that Sony has ruined the Dark Tower and Amazon owns the Dark Tower, it's one of those things where they would have really had to plan it from the beginning in order for it to be executed correctly.
But again, it falls into the fact that there's so many of these Stephen King properties that are all over the place. In fact, it is a Warner Brothers New Line property. So, I mean, it just wouldn't, there would be no way that we could get them to play nice. We couldn't even get Sony and Marvel to continue to play nice with each other. So, that be that as it may, those dreams of as far as a shared universe in its entirety with the Stephen King properties, unfortunately, at least in our lifetimes, will never happen.
That would be so cool, though, if it did.
Well, I know you'd be first in line. I know you would be first in line, my friend. But once again, it is Stephen King's It Chapter 2, off to a pretty good start. Like I said, just under expectations, $91 million at the domestic box office here this weekend, and almost $200 million worldwide. It is off to a good start. I don't think anybody really thought it was going to actually beat the $700 million worldwide that It Chapter 1 did. But anything at this point, if it gets over $400 million, which it looks like it will do, is pretty much going to be gravy for the entire series. I mean, if New Line and Warner Brothers had drawn this up as far as recreating the It series, and then he's saying, hey, look, if there's any way that it's going to garner over $1 billion for the two movies, I think they both would have been ecstatic. So it looks like overall the two movies are going to be a big success. Where it will go from here, it remains to be seen. Again, rumors say, and I will talk a little bit more about this with Jason Todd Feinberg later on in the show, about it possibly going back in time, and we'll see where that goes from there, because they just cannot avoid getting the change, the chunk of change, the money, all that. As far as from a Hollywood standpoint, they got to go ahead and try and keep on going. So wait and see what happens with the It universe when it comes to if it goes anywhere else, either before or after the events of It Chapter 2 coming up, maybe probably in the next 2, 3, 4 years. We'll wait and see. But It Chapter 2 at theaters is doing well right now. And again, it looks like it's going to be a success for Warner Brothers and New Line. My friend, I'm talking to you as far as speaking of movies that are out there. We're going to talk a little bit later in the show about Bad Boys for Life, Bad Boys, and all that. But those two stars, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, they're in need of a vehicle to really get them going. Will Smith, Suicide Squad really didn't do that great of a job as far as getting him out there, getting back into the limelight. I think the way that he wanted to. Gemini Man, kind of still on the fence on that one. I'm still not 100% sold on that. So Bad Boys for Life, that may reinvigorate the audience's interest in him and Martin Lawrence, because Martin Lawrence was look a little bit old in that trailer, but we'll wait and see what people are still thinking about Martin Lawrence and Will Smith when it comes to Bad Boys for Life. But I wanted to ask you, my friend, there are a lot of stars that we've talked about in recent weeks when it concerns Gerard Butler, and we thought his career was maybe on life support, but it looks like it's getting a little bit of a electric shock with Angel Has Fallen, but also as well Eddie Murphy, who's destined to come back. In fact, he announced that he's going back to do stand-up, I think probably for Netflix. He's going to have some hopefully in the near future, maybe even as early as next year, have some live stand-up shows that are going to be on Netflix that we can watch. And I can't wait for that. I know you can't either, because of the tremendous amount of success that he had in his career. So those are two stars destined to come back for at least some type of stardom. But I wanted to ask you, is there a list of 5 stars that you have off the top of your head, or that I actually gave you a few minutes to think of, that you think are deserving of a vehicle that will bring them back to superstardom?
Yeah, how do you want me to do this? Just name my 5 stars?
Just name your 5 stars, my friend.
All right, so I got Sam Worthington, whose career was ruined by James Cameron. We can all thank him for that. Unless
Avatar.
Who knows? Maybe the Avatar movies will skyrocket him to fame and fortune once again, but he'll probably be like 80. And
I disagree with you on that. I think Avatar brought his name to life, and then he tried to cash in with a lot of bad projects. I'm sorry.
I don't know, man, because I feel like he kind of
Terminator Salvation and.
But no, the movie was bad, but he was really good in the movie. Same thing with like Clash of the Titans, Wrath of the Titans. They weren't great movies, but he played the part really well. So I feel like he just needed maybe a couple more films to kind of launch him into the spotlight before he became like a Vin Diesel or something like that. And I think because he was booked up so hard with Avatar, he didn't really get the chance to do any of that stuff.
Vin Diesel found a pretty good vehicle for himself. Quite literally, and including the pun there.
It's just because who knew that looking like you were perpetually on your way to the yacht club could really make you that famous, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But, go ahead with your list, my friend.
My other star, I got Kate Beckinsale, who I hear is actually a terror to work with in real life, but I always admired her, and not just because I had an Underworld poster in my room as a teenager, but because I don't know. There's just something about her, man. Like you could tell. There's actresses and actors.
I think Pete Davidson had one too.
Right, probably. But you can always tell when people are in movie or in projects that they don't really believe in, but they still are able to pour themselves into it. That was always Kate Beckinsale in the Underworld movies for me. Next, I got Seth Green, who. Besides being in Mass Effect and Italian Job, like I feel like he could have been a little bit more than he was.
But he's so good behind the scenes. He's doing a lot of different. I mean, Robot
Chicken.
He
is Robot Chicken, Family Guy, stuff like that. He still does pretty well with that stuff. Joshua Jackson is my other sleeper here. Mighty Ducks was a good movie, and that kind of got him started in the spotlight. But I was actually a huge fan of Fringe. Did you ever watch that show?
I occasionally. I was not a diehard on that.
Okay, well, see, after the first season, you had to watch it die hard to get it, because it only lasts like 5 seasons. But it was a really, really good show, and I thought that he held his own okay. He's a good actor. He's very monotone, but like he's a lot better than a lot of the people I see on TV right now. My last star is one you and I will probably agree on, is Taylor Kitsch. I think that so here, I'm a huge fan of the John Carter books, right? So I feel like if they had put that property in the hands of someone who's actually capable of doing live action stuff, unlike Andrew Stanton, apparently, it could have turned out better for Taylor Kitsch. And the fact that he was in those films and they failed because they just weren't written very well. They could have been good. It's not the property that was bad. I think it's just the writing that was bad. But what are your thoughts on that?
I'm actually kind of a fan of John Carter, the movie. I know it could have been shortened up quite a bit. I know there are things that could have been done to make it even more palpable to a larger audience, but in and of itself, I think John Carter, it could have, I liked it, but it could have been a whole lot better. There were things that could have been done to it, things that could have been taken out of it. The female star I thought was just tremendous in her role. I liked her a lot in that role. Taylor Kitsch is something. Taylor Kitsch was someone that I thought was also deserving but after that he also did Battleship, so his choices as well were not exactly the best, because after he got John Carter and Disney, which wasn't the big monumental flop everybody makes it out to be, because it did garner, I believe, in a neighborhood of about $300 million, but worldwide. But it's still, I don't think they made a profit of it and anywhere near that. But it wasn't the huge whopping flop that I think a lot of people try to say it was. But Taylor Kitsch did Battleship soon after that, and
so did Liam Neeson, though. So let's not forget that.
Yeah, but Liam Neeson, I think he did those little Taken movies, and I think his career was doing okay after that. But Taylor Kitsch, yeah, he was the face behind Battleship. I think a lot of people relate that, and just unfortunately, his career went down from there. Although he has been a very good supporting character on several films. If people if people are looking for a film on maybe, let's say, a Friday night or whatnot, that's on video, just want to stream something, check out American Assassin. He does a great job in that movie. I know it's something we talked about a couple of years ago when it came out, but it's something that a lot of people missed. But it did financially okay at the box office. I think people need to go ahead and check that out. But yeah, Taylor Kitsch is someone who could use a vehicle. In fact, he is on my list as well of the 5 individuals that I think that could really use that type of vehicle. For me, I think Jim Carrey. Not in a comedic role. I think his dramatic chops. If people talk, from some of his great dramatic roles from the 90s. I think if people, and also Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or what's that? Sunshine of the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless.
Eternal Sunshine Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I think
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. He was brilliant in that movie. He had several good drama roles mixed in with all the crazy silliness that I think a lot of people got tired of. And, it's just a shame, because he's actually a very good actor. And I know he still does a lot of stuff out there, but not all of it is connecting. Some of it's just streaming stuff at this point in time. But I think Jim Carrey, if he was given a good dramatic role, could really knock it out of the park. Katherine Heigl, I know a lot of people say who, but she was the queen of rom-com around the turn of around the turn of this decade. I think a lot of people forget that she was appearing in almost every rom-com that was out there. And as an actress, she's she's not someone that's going to impress you, but she was someone at the height of her career was looking really as far as the that she would always be thought of in that context as almost on a superstar like level. Now, if she was given that opportunity again, I think she'd do very well at it, but she has burnt a lot of bridges with what she said in the past. And now she's trying to be very forgiving. And now she's trying to be very apologetic. I should say she's trying to be very apologetic. She's trying to be very remorseful now that her career's in the toilet. And as I was remarking to you before we went on the air, flush the toilet. And that might be her career at this point in time, because she went for the height of rom-coms to series. She went down. She couldn't even get on movies anymore. She went to TV series. The TV series she was starring on, they were all failing. So then she went on to co-starring appearances, and now she's not even able to do that as much. So now she's on Netflix series. That's the best she can do right now. So I think if you gave her one more chance, she might be able to do well with it. Will it be her going back onto Grey's Anatomy? That's for her and Grey's Anatomy to come up with as far as that's concerned, because I know she burned a lot of bridges there. For me also as well, Nicolas Cage. And I think Nicolas Cage, you know, talk about a tarnished reputation. Um, from the time I actually met him and Charlie Sheen way, way long ago, back into the 80s, before his career really took off, to where it was at the height of his career in the 90s and early 2000s, to where it is now, where it's just, he's just a shell of himself at this point. I still think there is a good role for him out there. I don't know what that is. I know him. I know he got a great role in Kick-Ass. I know that a lot of people forget about that. In fact, Jim Carrey had a great role in the only good role in Kick-Ass 2. So, put those two together right there for you. But Nicolas Cage would be somebody would love to go ahead and see get another opportunity. Not a National Treasure 3, and certainly not what was it, Salem's Lot 3? Salem's Lot 2 with him going, because in the original he was that they made, or the previous one that they made, he was going, the bees, the bees, the bees, the bees. That was one of the worst movies that's been made in the past 20 years. So Nicolas Cage, if he ever gets a chance to ham it up again, I think he would be able to go ahead and knock it out of the park. And then last but not least, I threw this name out at you, and you were kind of surprised. It kind of took you back. But Keenen Ivory Wayans, and the talent that this man had with In Living Color and the movies that he created in the 90s, just a very skilled individual, especially behind the camera, but also on it as well. And he would get his entire family. All of them have great talent. And I think him getting one more vehicle to go ahead and put out there, either on a major streaming format or a movie, I think would actually do very well. That's just my opinion, man. What do you thought? What do you think?
I mean, I'd be interested to see it. I just
notice I put 2 In Living Color alumni in there.
No, I see. I noticed that. Was Keenen the one from Major Payne?
No, that's Damon.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Keenen was the star of I'm Gonna Get You Sucker.
White Girls, was that?
No, that was that? It might have been White Girls. I have to look into that. But yeah, I'm Gonna Get You Sucker is probably one of my favorites with him. So
I'll have to go back and watch some of his stuff. I remember the name and I remember the face. I can't place him right now.
Watch In Living Color. Watch some episodes or some skits on YouTube of In Living Color. You'll be glad you did. I mean, it just the skill that they were showing. I mean, at that point in time, you could realistically say that the cast of In Living Color was much more skilled than what Saturday Night Live was doing at that time. I mean, that might be controversial to say, but to me, that's what I think. I mean, that's just what I think. So it was, far as Keenen Ivory Wayans, he directed White Chicks, but he did not star in it. That was his brother Sean and Marlon Wayans were actually the guys playing the White Chicks in that, but he did direct it, and he's got a long career behind the camera, but I also think that he still has something left to give in front of the camera as well. So yeah, that's what I think. So if you folks out there have 5 or even one star that's out there that you think will go ahead and be that type of star individual out there, that if given the chance, that could resurrect their career to the point where they're a star once again, please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Well, my friend, speaking of a star that gets a vehicle brought back to them for superstardom, we talked a little bit about it here a little bit ago. Bad Boys for Life, the trailer dropped last week. Your thoughts on it? Is there any juice left in this series? Do you think, we've talked about this again and again and again, studios wanting this nostalgia factor and bring it back to life. So I ask you, is Bad Boys for Life something that could be a vehicle for Martin Lawrence and Will Smith to come back into the hierarchy of popularity with audiences once again?
I don't think so. I mean, it could it could be something for them to make it back into movies, but in my opinion, it's the same thing like the Expendables. We see these guys popping back up in these action films, and it's cool to see them all back together, but you don't see them in a lot of highly successful films following that. So I think it's something that people want to see. Yeah, they've been talking about Bad Boys 3 for years. So maybe it'll do well, maybe it won't, but I don't see this being like a return to form for them where, Martin Lawrence is shooting another national security movie, Will Smith is doing another Independence Day. I don't see that being the case here.
Well, I think there might, as long as they kept the cost low, I think it's something that can turn a nice little tidy profit because there could be some nostalgia factor there. It all depends on when it's getting released. I think it's being released in the earlier part of next year, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to check into that, but I think there's still some type of nostalgia left for the Bad Boys series. It didn't leave on a bad note, so I think when it comes out in 2020, I think I think when it comes out in 2020, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are still interested into it to some extent. Whether or not it's going to be able to extend itself further and become a big hit and bring Martin Lawrence and to some extent Will Smith back into the forefront, because Will Smith's star is fading a little bit, I have to say. He's still someone that could get those roles, but that are presented to them that could put him in the hierarchy. I mean, Gemini Man we just talked about, but I'm not sure if it's going to get him to the point where he once was as the premier actor in all of Hollywood. But yeah, Bad Boys for Life, if promoted properly, it could come out in 2020 and maybe do a little something to garner some audiences. All right, my friend. That's any thoughts out there? Does anyone have any thoughts out there on Bad Boys for Life? Let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, coming up after the break, it's Jason Todd Feinberg from Hunnikween. He's going to talk about It Chapter 2, his thoughts on the movie, plus a lot of the plus some of the horror movies that are coming out for the rest of 2019 as well. It's kind of a disappointing bag, to be honest with you, because there's not many horror movies and there's not many horror movies coming out for the rest of the year, and that's what we talk about as well. Coming up right after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. All right, and we're back to close out the show. It's the Pop Culture Cosmos. If you need a listing where we're at, because we're being played on radio 7 days a week all around the world on great radio stations, hey, check out our listings today. Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, where you actually get a listing of all of our great radio stations, including the folks at IPM Nation. Thank you so much for allowing us to be on that station now for, I think, going on 3 years. I cannot thank enough the folks at IPMNation.com. Hopefully you'll check out our show there every Monday and every Friday. Plus, also, if you need a listing of any of the podcast networks that we're on, because we're on a whole ton of them. I stopped counting at 30, so I know we're over 30. Check out our listings today at Pop Culture Cosmos, including, you know what? I haven't mentioned this one before, but we've been on Stitcher forever. So if you got Stitcher and you like Stitcher, we're on Stitcher at Pop Culture Cosmos. Also wanted to mention that Inside Sports Fantasy Football, that's on Anchor. The show's first run on Anchor, but if you also want to listen to it, you can listen to it here on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel or on the Inside Sports channel as well. I'm also going to go ahead in the next couple weeks and start a Lakers Fast Break podcast. And if you check out, I'm also doing some work for Off the Glass, OTGbasketball.com. That's Off the Glass at OTGbasketball.com. My friend, you've got a great thing going on with your book. Congratulations, You Suck. So share the goods, my friend. What's going on with that book and why people need to get it?
It's out. Buy it. Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, Book Locker Inc. Check it out. Buy it. Leave a review on Amazon. I greatly appreciate it. If you want to know what people are saying about it, read the reviews on Amazon.com. Seems to be doing all right, and I greatly appreciate it.
Well, I Well, I know a lot of people out there greatly appreciating as well. It's gotten several good reviews, 5-star reviews on Amazon. So if you get a chance and you get it off of Amazon, you read the book and you really like it, please support and give Josh a great word, a 5-star review on Amazon.com. It would really help him out. Or if you want to go into a Barnes & Noble, you just walk right in there and ask for it. Congratulations, you suck. And they'll send it right to that store so you can go ahead and take it home with you as soon as it comes in. My friend, before we head on out, we got to talk about finishing up our 131 to 140 on our top 200 video games of all time. These games were voted on by our followers of the Pop Culture Cosmos, and we couldn't thank them enough for doing so. So at 140, we've got Tiger Heli. 139, Super Smash Brothers Brawl for the Wii. You've got 138, Star Wars The Old Republic. That's the MMORPG that's still out today from BioWare. 137, you got Speed Rumbler. 136, I know you want to talk about this one, Silent Hill. 135 is a very under the radar game from someone who's coming up with a great game coming up here very soon, and that's Hideo Kojima. This one I'd like to see get translated either into a revised game of some type or even possibly a movie concept, and that is Policenauts. Pokemon Blue is at 134. Need I say more on Pokemon? 133 is a classic game. I hope you got a chance to play this in the arcades, my friend, and that is Paperboy. 132 is New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and 131 is Mortal Kombat 2. That's Mortal Kombat 2. So you heard the list, my friend. I know you're tracking it down on our popculturecosmos.wordpress.com site. So I want to hear your thoughts on titles 140 to 131. Any of them stick out in your mind?
All right, so I have not. So we'll start at Star Wars and The Old Republic. I have not played the game. I have friends who have played it, but I just remember the trailers being really cool. I remember them putting out like 7-minute trailers, and you could watch a whole collection of them on YouTube. Usually they're like an hour and a half, I think. But they did a really good job. I was intrigued, but I never had a PC good enough to play it. Silent Hill was fun. I only ever played the first one. Really kind of scary game. Kind of reminded me of Resident Evil 2. Came out around the same time. It was, they were expecting it to spawn a whole franchise. There's Silent Hill 1, Silent Hill 2, and I don't know what came out after that, because I know Silent Hill came out around the same time as Resident Evil and Parasite Eve, and Parasite Eve was the more terrifying of the three. But
they ran the Silent Hill franchise into the ground. They kept making Silent Hill games, and unfortunately the quality just they were actually in the process of making a revised version of Silent Hill, but remember Del Toro was involved with it.
It was being written by Kojima, and it was being produced by Guillermo del Toro's company. We're supposed to put it out.
Funny, that's the people coming up very soon with a new game.
Yeah, but it sounds like Guillermo took a backseat for Death Stranding. He more like appeared in instead of really had any production credits for it. Pokemon Blue, I talked about Pokemon Red last week. I did play both of them. Fun times. Why
do you think one is is a little bit higher than the other?
I don't know, because it's you go to the store, you could buy both copies of it, but you assume that Pokemon Red automatically comes with a Charmander, right? It's just, in Pokemon Blue, you automatically get a Squirtle. You look at the picture on the website. I think it was an assumption about what Pokemon come with what, based on people who haven't played it, because these are the first two versions of the game, so you don't know what you're getting into. Yeah, it was fun. It's pretty much the same exact thing, but there are a few less Pokemon. Machop, Machamp. No, actually, you got those from trading Pokemon. I don't actually remember, man. I'm sorry. I'm tired. Paperboy was good. I do remember playing that one. That was fun. That was an arcade game. Never played Super Mario's Wii U. Mortal Kombat 2 it's a Mortal Kombat game. You played that. That came out around the same time as Primal Rage, if I remember correctly. And that was
one really upped the ante, I think, for the Mortal Kombat series.
It did, and it had more characters, and the soundtrack was cool. I remember going to Blockbuster and renting it and playing with some friends on Friday nights, getting pizza and stuff like that. So I have some good memories in Mortal Kombat. But what are your thoughts on these?
Well, I explained a little bit of them as far as Star Wars: The Old Republic. Like you said, is something that was very cinematic, and I think that's what BioWare was going for. Paperboy, when you went to the arcades and you would play that for about 10, 15, 20 minutes, your hands, because of the handlebars on it and the grips on it, were really just getting so tight and so abrasive on your skin that when you, even after 15 minutes, you're just like, oh man, what did I just do? But it was just such a blast to play when you're going ahead and trying to go ahead and get the the papers into the right area, into the right homes and all that, and trying to avoid the pratfalls and pitfalls of all that was going on. So Paperboy was really a blast. But yeah, I mean, the Wii's version of Super Smash Brothers Brawl is also something a lot of people really enjoy. And they, I've heard more than one person say that that's their favorite version of the series as well. So a lot of great titles. And as we continue to go on our Friday show, we're going to be talking about titles 121 to 130. So stay tuned for that. But if you want to sneak ahead further, our site, popculturecosmos.wordpress.com, has new listings come up each and every day, and they're getting closer and closer to number one, a little bit ahead of the radio shows. So if you want to check out exactly what's coming up for the next 100 and some odd titles, you want to go ahead and check it out today at popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. So again, I want to thank Jason Todd Feinberg from Honeyqueen for joining the show today. I think it's been an excellent one, and we've got a lot of stuff coming up for Friday, including your game, my friend, Borderlands 3, and so much more to talk about. And you mentioned that you watched Carnival Row. I guess I'm going to have to too, and we're going to share our thoughts on the Friday episode as well.
Yeah, a really cool show. I'm interested in breaking it down, seeing what you think about it. 8 episodes doesn't really take a lot of time, and it's very intriguing, as I would like to say.
It sounds intriguing indeed, and on the Friday show, we'll share our thoughts on that and whether or not you should spend your time on it as well. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening, and we thank you for watching as well. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.